Guys, I am just in the process of getting set up here, and I was wondering why this YouTube live chat thing doesn't seem to be working. But we'll see. I'll try to read out any comments. I got a whole grand one comment on the last live stream, so I'll just dive into it, and maybe when I'm flying, fast forwarding, I can have some time to get the chats up again. So in any event, welcome to my Around the World series. This will be, I think, flight 106 in the whole series. And today we're going from Okinawa, Kadena Air Force Base, over to Hong Kong, VHHH. And I have already gone into SimBrief and typed that in. So we got RODN, which is the Okinawa airport, and VHHH. So got the route. Here's our routing. And there's going to be our flight. So pretty darn straight. And coming down, I forgot to do this again beforehand, but so I download it from SimBrief and it pops up down here, and then I can show in folder real quick and cut it just so I don't end up with 20 of them in there, and I will paste it into the My Documents Flight Simulator X once again, I don't think it matters too much exactly where you're doing that. So there we go. So that is our flight plan, that once we get into Flight Simulator we can load up and then write down our waypoints and go from there. So took a look at the airport. I like using this wonder map. If nothing else, you can get an idea of what's going on with the terrain. We got some definite mountains to the south. We'll have a highway this way. Chances are we're going to fly around the airport and land to the, facing the east, because if we look here, so this is we don't have radar because this is mostly, I guess, an American page, but in any event, we can get an idea what the weather's like, and they have a tropical storm coming on Wednesday of next week, and at the same time it is about 5 a.m. there, so I'm not in a real big hurry. Sunrise isn't until 6:30, but I figured maybe we could take off in the dark. I could push the time forward in Flight Sim if we wanted to, but I didn't bother. Again, it's not such a big deal, I think, to take off in the dark. The landings are a little more interesting, and it's just dark for the YouTube. So, anyway, but what I was also noticing, see the south 12, well, really right now, we'll be there in a few hours. Cut off the miles per hour, but we're talking about a 10 mile per hour wind, east-southeast. So going back to this screen, looks like we'll probably be landing towards the east. And this, I'm starting to lose a little bit of faith in this. Here's Hong Kong, and it's, it does look clear with the precipitation. The clouds don't look too bad. So I guess this is, take a look at the pressure. A lot of times, it's kind of a hard one to read there. A lot of green, huh? Not a real clear tropical storm system. Oh, maybe this is it over here. So this might be heading this way. I think they do run that direction generally in the Pacific, well, in the northern hemisphere. So there we go. So there's Hong Kong right there. So that's probably what's coming, and it looks like we're going to fly right ahead of it. So if I don't get a flight in by next Wednesday, I don't know. Might make an interesting video, though. So there we go. So that's my, feel good enough about the weather. In addition, and I closed the Google Earth. It's just, I think I'm going to probably even close this website just because of lag from the last video. But I, have it to where, I looked. We'll definitely have an ILS landing at some point here. So let's close that out. And there we are in the airplane. One last thing I usually do is, this is the active sky next, and in some ways this is the weather that's going to matter. Now it's going to change, over the couple hours. It's real time, so even if I fast forward, this doesn't make up future weather. But we could take a look, and we have a few clouds at 2,000. Again, with an ILS landing, that shouldn't be a problem, or at least an ILS possible landing. So there we go. So Fairly strong winds, again, from the east. So, not sure exactly the runway directions, but they looked close to east-west. So we should be in fairly good shape with that. So I'll just shrink that guy down out of our way. And I am going to come over to my other computer, which unfortunately blocks my seeing your guys' chat. And I will open up my checklist and we can get started. All right, so we are paused at this moment. So I'll take it off of pause. And just so I can't even see, I know I got a switch up here somewhere. Yeah, well, get familiar with your plane before you get into it, if that's the case, because if I didn't know where that switch was, I don't know if I'd have found it, honestly. Let's get all these lights turned on. Just so we can see. So once again, I sit here and hope that Air Hauler acknowledges that we come off the block. So there's our GPU is working now, and one of the first things on our checklist is to make sure we're on external power. So we are. Up here is main bus tie. We want to turn that on. There's our external power switch right there. And we'll come down here. Let me zoom out a little bit. I don't want to make you guys seasick, but if I'm too far out, you probably can't see the switches I'm throwing either. So our position lights are right here. Can I get the hover thing? There you go. Position lights off, so we'll turn them on. We will make sure that the parking brake is on, and it is right there. We'll put the control lock on. And we will, well, check the batteries, but just the way this plane starts up, these battery switches here are always on. At least when it starts up through Air Hauler. So we want to turn on our radio control, ARC-DO. And that'll start some announcements. We don't have any passengers or cargo for the flight, but that's okay too. And now it's checklist is telling me to get the GPU, check for external power. I'm not going to bother opening the doors. If you did want to open the doors in this plane, it's Shift-E. And, well, I guess I am bothering to open the doors. And if we came over here to... Oh, I'm lost. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Yeah. Right down here, let me zoom in. See, this says SysNav. So if we come over here to System, and we can hit Door System, and what that does is tell us that, you know, red warning that this front passenger door on this side, the pilot side, is open. So I guess we might as well leave that on. They want you to put this up there so you remember to close the doors, which is probably a fine idea in an airplane, especially one this big. Okay, so moving down the list a little bit further, we want to set our landing pressure. And let's come in here. I know this screen is buggy sometimes when it comes to that, but I want to find my elevation, 27 feet, so basically sea level, which we probably could have guessed based on looking at that map. Oops, there we go, 27 feet landing altitude. And we want to put these, while we're up here, to normal. So these are the engine start. Switches, recirculation fan, turn that on. They tell us to put the cabin. We don't have any passengers, so I'm not going to turn the cabin temperature up. And what's going on? It's all the way down. Going the wrong way. There we go. So we'll have a nice, comfortable 18 degrees Celsius. A little bit cool, I guess, for some, but I like the cold weather, to be honest. And we're not going to turn on passenger signs, and we're not going to bother with cutting the fuel off and things like that. I guess safety measures for passengers. And let me check real quick, make sure nobody chatted anything. Nope. Okay, back to the checklist. So side demisters on this plane are over here. Right there. And this is the steering. It doesn't, there we go, it said steering off. Oops. Let's hover over it again, see if I get that. No, not going to give it to me. Anyway, this is the steering. This is the takeoff warning switch. That's another one I struggled to find initially, especially because you can't get rid of this. This is like the wheel steering, which automatically works with my joystick. There I am with the joystick, but you know, if you didn't know that, and if you look, our nose steering is off. So okay, so anyway, taxi switch right here should be into the taxi mode, the spoiler switch I should call it. Yaw damper is right below our autopilot button right here, so we want to turn that on. And the anti-skid switch, we want to turn that on. I guess we can calm these caution lights while we're doing it, huh? And we already did the control lock. We got disconnect on the power levers. And condition levers, again, they have fuel off with the intention that we are loading passengers. Trims, the trims seem to be fine when I load this plane up as far as elevator trim. You know, the autopilot will adjust that to its own liking anyway. But the rudder, I'll usually put on 6 right. Wonderful. And there we go. So our different trims are set. There's your aileron trim right here. So. And again, I'll probably do this mostly in autopilot, so I'm not going to worry about trimming it out too much. Alright, so now we want to check ATIS, or automatic weather, which in my flights, I choose to pretend I have a co-pilot that pretty much just does the radio for me. So while I probably could tune this up, and this is how you would do it. It would be right down here. If we wanted to change the ATIS, we could adjust it there. So I get enough going on that I forget enough of this stuff anyway. I'm not very good at this, honestly, but I'm getting better. I just flew a FS economy flight for the first time, and I just flew a Cessna, and man, I landed it beautifully. So if you do have this Majestic Bombardier -8 Q400, let's get this. I'm going to turn this yoke off. I hope that doesn't bother anybody. That way I can get this barometer switch a little easier. Set both of the, this is the backup altimeter, get that set. So I didn't pay enough attention to her, so I have to listen to her again because I was too busy talking. So not too much of a wind. Alright, so they're saying, let's turn that off so we don't have to listen to her. But they're saying runway 5, so I'll go ahead and put in course for runway 5. Let's see if it said ILS, so we should have an actual heading. Let's make that as wide as I can. And again, I know this thing flashes, but 55. So let's come and put the course on 55 so we have the runway heading set. Very good. And what else? We want to enter our flight plan. So this is, well, let's start here. So you saw earlier that I loaded up that file, and I will come into here and hit load, and it'll be date modified. This is the 23rd of September, and it was 4:44 Eastern when I did that. So let's open up this one, and I'll come here to find route. And what I want to do, so I can type these in, is write this down. I found that for some reason these get changed from the time I go from sim brief to here, so I'll write them down real quick. Oh, I see. Sorry, guys. I just saw your chat now. Let me just finish writing these down, and I'll catch up on all the chats, especially while we're on the ground, and I'm not too excited. The joystick I have is a Logitech Extreme 3D Pro. It's okay. I like it. It seems like it's got a little bit of a dead spot. And then if I had one real wish though, it would be that the throttle was a little bit finer. Like I fiddle quite a bit with the throttle on that joystick. But I don't really, at this point, feel like paying, too much. I've seen some nice throttles online. All right, so I finally got these written down. Let me take a look at these chats. No, UK Simmer, you're not. I'm not quite sure how to get that to connect. I have this is my XSplit, and I'm wondering if I don't have to open it up. Here's oh, you know what? There it goes. That's what I didn't do. Hey, there we go. I remembered. Thanks for saying something. I was going to wait till I was in flight, so to speak. So let's shrink that back down. And I do want to put my okay, I got my altitude 27,000 here. Alright. No, don't want to change where I'm at. There we go. So let's unpause this. There we are, back in the plane. Yep, so I hope you guys can see the chat thing. Yeah, I just bought my joystick. Well, really, when I got back into Flight Sim, I had a real old and crappy one myself, but yep, no problem, UK Simmer. Yeah, that's I was bothering me, but I'm just kind of new at this whole, live streaming thing. So I'll get my act together one of these days. So, and now that I wrote these down, I need to hop over into Flight Planner. No, I'm sorry. I probably could have accepted this earlier. And we'll come in here, and I have to now type these all in. I've heard that they've talked about upgrading to a Pro Edition. I'm not sure if that... I have the Pilot Edition of this plane from Majestic. And I'll tell you what, it might be worth the $20 to me since I've been flying it so much to go for the upgrade. Oh, that seems like a long distance. I guess hopefully that's our hop across there. Is it in the right direction? 257, yeah, it's west, so at least that's a good sign. Sometimes, for whatever reasons, I gotta type these into this flight computer, and even though I took it right out of Flight Sim, it just doesn't match up too well. TD. So guys, this is the worst part of it. Well, the worst part is when I get this all typed in and then I don't get my air hauler message. It says I figured out that you're taxiing. This one's not too bad, but some of them, you end up with a lot of waypoints to type in. Yeah, see, look at that one. And River, I might have got to talking and messed up. So let's just come here real quick, edit. Look, that's definitely R-I-V-E-R, right? Yep, no doubt about it. And that's just, oops, didn't mean to do that. Look, it's just not a good code, there's no way it's 22 or 1,200 nautical miles away. So we'll just delete that one out of there. I don't like to have to do that, but alright, so the other thing I'll do is come down here to performance and look at this overall distance, and that gives me an idea that everything's right. If we come back to the flight plan, things look pretty good. We're not heading off in goofy directions. That's kind of a turn right there, but I'm assuming that's some kind of maneuver around Hong Kong's airport. Good. All right, well, the paperwork's semi out of the way. Now, we do want to take our fuel. This will give us an idea of the range, though really probably should have more than enough. I put enough for an extra 200 miles, so especially because the plane's light. It's not like I have any cargo loaded in, so... So we got what, 4260 in each tank, which would be 8520 total. And we'll enter that, and that way when we do come back to this performance, it will show us exactly what we need. So it'll show us a range. Again, it's something to look at. Not sure how. Pretty confident we'll make it there. I don't know what our headwinds are. What do we got for a... So I have the active sky next, which I might have seen earlier. And we'll just get a quick winds aloft report. So if we're... Look at that, 13 mile per hour winds. That's... Oops. That's nothing. Sorry, I didn't mean to close that. Yeah, make this a little bit bigger. 9 mile per hour, so it's really nothing right here anyway. That's kind of good. Right, let me pop this open. That way you guys can see maybe a little better. And I will pop this open as well and put this up here. Make it a little smaller. There we go, close that. Alright, I'm going to hop back to the checklist, which kind of means I can't see your chats for a minute. One day I probably should just print this thing out, huh? Alright, so now that we got our fuel in and we got our route set up, we want to enter our squawk code, which we would need to get first.
Clearance delivery, Romeo, Echo, Victor, Echo, Romeo, IFR to Hong Kong, ready to copy. Romeo, Echo, Victor, Echo, Romeo, cleared at Hong Kong Airport as filed. Fly runway heading, climb and maintain 11,000. Departure frequency is 119.1, squawk 0112.
Alright, let's acknowledge
Romeo,
that.
Echo, Victor, Echo, Romeo, cleared at Hong Kong Airport as filed. Fly runway heading, climb and maintain 11,000. Departure on 119.1, squawk 0112. Romeo, Echo, Victor, Echo, Romeo, read back correct. Contact ground on 118.5.
Alright guys, so we want to put our altitude in for 11,000. Got our squawk code set. We're not transponding it yet, but that'll come later down the checklist. And get this set to 11,000 feet. And they want us to go around power right there. And they also would like us to turn our nav source to FMS, which is one click to the left. And set runway heading, we already did that. Altitude, press altitude select. Did we do that? No. So let's press altitude select. And we also want to press heading. So we want this set up with heading, so that way when we do click on the autopilot, we've got the course set to the runway course. We're just all ready to engage the autopilot immediately. We have our nav set up here, so we're ready to head right towards the first navigation point. Alright, so minimum decision altitude, I'll set it, even though I'm kind of counting in on coming in on the, you know, with an ILS. We'll see what happens, but just in case we don't. So this decision altitude will be our minimum for making a decision. It's probably close enough if we do come in with visual on the runway. And the decision altitude, we'll leave that on 200. If I hover, I think you can see that. Oh, there it is. You can see decision altitude 200. Oops. Right there. There's our minimum decision altitude going into Hong Kong. Now, they're also talking about the acceleration speed. This, I don't know. This thing takes off, you know, amazingly fast. I mean, it's a very powerful plane, and with nothing on it, these you know, makes it a little easier for me to land. That's one of the reasons I'm not taking big cargoes or anything. All right, so I'm not going to bother setting the V speeds, but if you did want to do that, you would set them right here. So, for example, well, I'll set the V1. V1 in this plane's 104. I'll be at 120 before I even. If I pull back at 104, I'll be at 120 going down the runway with this plane. So, set nav aid frequencies. I'm not going to do that. Close the doors. So, again, on this plane, it's Shift E should close the doors, and we should see that reflected. Here, I'll make that. I'm not sure if you guys can see this. Let's see if you guys have chatted anything. I did not know that about British being spoken around the world. I know that I find it amazing that flying into Hong Kong here, the people will have the same accents that they do in America, as far as this goes. So let's switch this back to nav. Now, one of the things they want us to set up on this check sheet that I don't normally do is to, well, this one's on sys too. Let's take that one off of sys. Or actually, I wanted on sys, but I'm going to hit engineering systems. Oops, electrical systems. So what I'm doing, if you guys, here, geez, sorry. There you go. So here's our electrical system. So this switch down here would turn it to the, you can see your torque. This is a nice one to look at too. When you're first starting out, we want to, especially we're on the ground power unit, they kind of want us on this until you check that stuff. All right, just looking over the checklist real quick, and now it's they tell me to contact ground. I just as soon start getting my switches and whatnot in position, and let's get permission to taxi going. Oops, I lost when I hit Control E, for some reason it takes that off. So we will contact Okinawa ground and request
Okinawa
IFR.
ground, Romeo Echo Victor Echo Romeo with Zulu, ready to taxi IFR. Romeo Echo Victor Echo Romeo, taxi to and hold short of runway 5. Left, using taxi reclaim up. Contact tower at 126.2 when ready. Taxiing, hold short, runway 5.
Alright, so we are going off runway 5, which is good. And I am going to start firing up the engines, and the big key things with getting this plane running is to move these two switches to the start position. Well, one for each engine. It doesn't matter if this is in control. That just keeps you... This makes you look like an idiot when you go down the runway and you forget to turn it off. Like this, even though your joystick throttle may be forward, it doesn't go past that point. But that's really about it. It took me like a half hour to figure out how to start this plane the first time, and now I can start it in 27 seconds. It's actually really pretty easy. So you flick this switch one way or the other. You see that select light, and it's select for engine number 2, so we should start seeing that ramp up. Now, because of where I'm at, it doesn't look like I'm going to need a pushback. And this plane is pretty cool because it has like a reverse spoiler, so you can actually inch your way backwards at that point. I'm just keeping an eye. Once this engine starts picking up RPMs, see the switch goes back to neutral. You can switch it over to engine number 1. Get engine number 1 started. I know from being in the Dash 8s before in real life, a lot of the pilots seem to just run one engine, but I'm not really paying for the fuel, so I'm not going to worry about that. So what cautions do we still have on? Should be almost out. We won't turn on the pitot heaters until a little bit later. They're right up here. We'll wait till we're ready for taking off for whichever reasons. Oop. Sorry about all that camera movement. Let me see if you guys are chatting. Sorry again. Like I said, when I'm doing this, I can't, when I'm doing down the checklist. But I'll close the checklist shortly here. Alright, so both engines are started, and that's good. So now we can turn our external power off, which is this switch up here. And come into here, and go to Data, Services, and cancel the ground power unit. If we wanted to push back, we could then do the pushback at that point. But like I said, we're not at a gate where we're sitting here, so I'm not going to bother. Alright, so now we want to put our condition levers to maximum. So she's going on and on about that, isn't she? Alright, so we have taxi clearance, and why did I miss turning? Oh, after start checklist, never mind. I was going to say I missed the whole list. Alright, so we want main bus tie off. We want the windshield panel to normal. We want the bleeds on, which is all the way over here. We want the bleeds set to minimum. We want auto feather in our different pumps, our hydraulics. So there's our prop auto feather, auxiliary fuel pumps, hydraulic pressure. Wonderful. Nose steering, again, we turned that off. We really didn't probably have to because we're not getting pushback, but there we go. Turn the nose steering on. Now this is where they're talking about put MDF2 to nav. So if we did that, we would lose the picture of this, and I don't really ever look at it. So let's get rid of that menu. We would do that right here. So if we switch this to nav, and then what they talk about is to, you know, put that one of them to the weather. So let's turn on our weather radar to standby. That's on the list. See, let me zoom in so you guys might be able to see. See, I can turn this one to terrain. So I guess it would be the autopilot's job at that point to monitor that. And then this one could be on the regular nav and have the weather. See, this is on weather standby. So this one would show us our weather, while this one was showing us our terrain. So we can leave it like that. Doesn't make too much difference to me at this point. Like I said, I rarely, I don't look over there to fly. It's just the way it is. Alright, so we do want to turn on our transponder now, and this was a tough one. So see, this right here is in standby. You want to hold that for like 2 seconds and then let go, and you'll see alt on. We want to change the radio controls to FMS mode, and we are pretty much ready to go. Begin our taxi, turn on the taxi lights, release the parking brake controls. Yeah, I don't know why they have us releasing the parking brake first, but let's come down here and look at our controls. So rudder down, up. Sorry, that's the road. I did the ailerons. The elevators I did first. Oh yeah, I can't check this while I'm in taxi mode. It won't let me. Won't let me check the ailerons. All right, so we should be ready to go, right? Yep. So let's get moving. I do like to use the progressive cheating taxi. To go back to where I can see your guys' chat. Yeah, UK Simmer, it's good that I can speak a version of British, huh? Certainly would make it easier if I was a real pilot, I would think. I feel bad for guys, and I know it's probably even caused some accidents. Yeah, I don't see progressive tax anywhere, so I guess we're just gonna start moving. There we go. That's what we wanted to see, that taxi and take off. If you don't see that from air hauler and you fly for 2 or 3 hours to your next destination, if you're like me, it tends to piss you off a bit. And I see a yellow line way up ahead. Yeah, I'm not sure if you guys own this Majestic Dash 8, but it's... I'm not sure if it's certainly been worth the money to me. It's like $70, but I've had a lot of fun with it. And I wanted a plane that was bigger and, you know, could fly some good distances. I was playing air hauler, so it can, you know, you can actually make some money with it, kind of thing. But it's a hard plane to land. I mean, they jokingly call it the Crash 8, and I was mentioning earlier I played FS Economy for the first time, and just to see what it was about, and I flew a Cessna, and it's just so much easier to land than this thing. And I brought it in like I was a professional. I land this thing, I'm lucky to get it on the ground after the 5th hop, you know. But we're almost ready to get in the air here. I should probably get my flaps. Let's get them set to 10 so I don't forget about them. Driving like a drunk man, looking at gauges and stuff. I could definitely understand too why you would want a co-pilot. I mean, there's just a lot going on at certain times in the plane that trying to drive along and, you know, throw the last minute switches.
05 left.
So why is that progressive taxi taking me? Understand why that's pointing me out to the middle of the runway. So we'll just stop right here for a second. Let's put on our... That I need to open up my check sheet again, hold short. Alright, so if we had people, we'd notify the flight attendants at this point. Let's tune to tower. Let's put our pitot-static heaters on. Ice protection, might as well turn that on. Not sure that it hurts if you do. I'm going to leave the engine off. And yeah, and I still, if you guys know what this does, hit the heading twice to reset FD. So, there you go. Check that the control panel's clear, and that's just our parking brake sign over there. And we want to make another last check that we have this on heading, GA, and on altitude select. And I'd like to zoom this out to 0.4 and then get it right in this position, and that's as much for my own front sense of reference, you know. Alright, so let's request clearance. Got our flaps. Like I say, I can see the flap gauge like right down here, which is nice. Probably underneath the chat thing for you guys.
Clear for takeoff. Runway 5 left.
Alright, clear for takeoff. The sun's coming up. Oops, we probably should even put on our...
Romeo, Echo, Victor, Echo, Romeo. Did you hear my last transmission?
Yep, but I wasn't really paying enough attention to you. Sorry, buddy.
Cabin crew sees caution.
Am I going the wrong way?
Clear for takeoff. Runway 5 left. Romeo, Echo, Victor, Echo, Romeo.
On runway.
This plane will also, by the way, turn on a dime, which is kind of nice. Let's get lined up. Let's hit the brakes for a second. We've got our lights on, landing lights, taxi lights off, anti-collision. Real quick, let's set that to white. There we go. Alright, so we got our logo and wing lights on as well. Alright, let's throttle up and get out of here. Yep, there you go. See what I was talking about? I said that earlier. When you forget to turn that off, like a schmuck on the runway, you know? Alright, let's try that again. And we'll just hold her back for a minute, get up to RPM. And this is where if you didn't set that rudder, this thing really wants to pull to the left on takeoff, so you'll see even with the right rudder set, it's still going over that way a bit. So I'm applying a fair amount of right rudder right now, if you can see that gauge down there. Just sort of took off. So I mean, this thing, push that nose down so we don't gain too much. Let's put the autopilot on, get the landing gear up. Why is my heading so far off?
Romeo, Echo, Victor, Echo, Romeo. Contact Okinawa departure on 119.1.
I set the course instead of setting the stupid heading thing.
Echo, Romeo.
Alright, so let's get our flaps up.
Okinawa departure, Romeo, Echo, Victor, Echo, Romeo. Is climbing through 1,800, Fort 1,000. Romeo, Echo, Victor, Echo, Romeo. Okinawa departure, Roger. Altimeter 2985. Romeo, Echo, Victor, Echo, Romeo. Turn right, heading 065. Resume on navigation. Climb and maintain 110.
As you guys see, I've already got our heading on pretty close to that. Where is it? Right here, 68. So, now say resume on navigation. So, acknowledge the instruction. We'll switch from heading to nav. So you see LNAV. And I'm not sure why we would fly out this way. I guess that's just sort of a traffic air control point, you know. I guess it's picking up the highway in the sky at that point. So we are at 45,000 feet. I'm not sure exactly what you mean. So the landing of yesterday was not so that bad. Well, it was not that good either. You know, I struggle with it. Let's put it this way: like, there's been times that I've gotten it landed and been sitting there sweating. So now, if you guys notice, we're climbing at 3,400 feet per minute, so we'll knock these throttles. You gotta be real careful with this, or else you end up going down too far. But we'll knock that prop speed down. That'll slow our descent down, and plus save us a bunch of fuel.
Romeo, contact Naha Air Force Basic Center on 119.3. 119.3.
So we need to do this handoff. Alright, and turn off our auxiliary pumps, our auto feather, turn on our heaters, our altimeter, oop, I did that again, our altimeter's right here, we are have it set correctly, and we're going to take and turn on our weather. Weather to on, you can see that come up on our display there. Ice protection, let's open up the heaters. We are going to take and put our bleed mode to normal. As we approach 10,000 or 12,000 feet, we should do that. So our bleeds are both on. That ding that you heard was are increasing out, like, are getting within 1,000 feet at the set altitude. So we are now had that, and what I'll do is put our IAS on, which I probably should have done before. Now that I think about it, get this up to 205. All right, I'm sorry, buddy, I'm busy. So now we'll climb at a set speed at 205. Point. How's it looking out here? Kind of pretty clouds, huh? Which way is the sun? That's the south over that way. Don't really see much of the sun. We should have a pretty drastic turn, or did we already make it when I wasn't paying attention? Let's take our range, put it all the way up. Yeah, we got like a big long straight line to go to China. Alright, so let me run down this list. ArcDo, weather chime, Not sure why I hit that, but I think it might be to tell the cabin crew that they're free to do stuff. Reduce power when leveling off. 10,000 feet. We want to turn off some lights. So let's turn off our landing and we'll turn off our wing inspection lights and our logo light. We'll leave the beacon on, and we'll leave the anti-collision on. And the taxi lights are off. Normally we could turn off seatbelt signs if we had passengers. And we're ready to cruise. Alright, so let me get this thing out of my way so I can see if you guys are talking. Yeah, about the landing of yesterday. For me, it's never bad if I get an okay on
Romeo, Echo, Victor, Echo, Romeo. Climb
Now what do you want?
light
Okay,
level
27,000.
270.
I wish they would tell me that a little bit sooner where this thing didn't go into that pitch hold mode. That's the max. See, I can't turn that up anymore in this airplane. So now
Romeo,
let's...
Echo, Victor, Echo, Romeo. Acknowledge last transmission. Climb and maintain light level 270. Romeo, Echo, Victor, Echo, Romeo.
Alright, we're set to go up to 27,000. But yeah, no. My landings are pretty bad at times in this plane. At least I hit the runway. You know, I like nice long ones, and that was even with... I think sometimes the ILS actually messes me up because I don't really get a feel for the winds and all that stuff until I'm too low, and you know, sort of make a mess of the whole thing at that point. But there we go. So what else do we need to do in here? The mister's on. Take this, let's get rid of that for a second, and come over here to performance and see how we're making out. So even without still being in the climb, and we're only climbing at 1,500 feet a minute, which is a little bit slow for this plane. Well, not slow. If you had a bigger cargo, it'd be slower, but so we'll have plenty of range, it looks like. This seems to, you know, again, it depends on what throttle settings you have at the moment, but seems to be fairly accurate, all things considered. Let's take a look. What is our wind? 4. That's pretty amazing. That's probably one of the lower winds I've seen up this high. What else have we got going on? Yeah, see, this putting this on the train. I'm going to switch it back over to systems, and let's look at the engine systems for a second here. It's probably easier for you guys if I do that. Yep, so we're running at 64. This means maximum climb. I'm not real sure about like the engine control in this, but that means maximum climb, and you'll see eventually I think it'll change to MCR, which will be, it'll recognize it's in cruise mode. And normally what I do is once I get up to 27,000 feet, I'll start fast forwarding things. So still got a ways to go. It's kind of dark. I'm not sure how well you guys can see. Probably fairly well, I would hope. Not a whole lot of excitement at this point in the flight. Let's change this over to the local time. Here. 5:15. Right? Yeah, 5:16. So it's a little earlier than I even thought. But it should be daylight by the time we get there. Cheated a little bit, start fast forwarding a bit now. You have to be careful fast forwarding too much though. Or she'll start over speeding eventually. Yeah, so Vincent, or if you guys saw yesterday's landing, what did you think of it? Kind of sad, huh? But hey, I have fun. That's the point, I think. Like I said, you should have seen me in that Cessna today. That was just smooth as silk. Alright, we're at 25,000, so we should hear a ding at 26,000. And hopefully that'll get leveled off. We'll get our flight speed. A lot of times we don't even have to change it, but let's get ready. We'll take our prop RPMs down to 850. But we'll let the speed increase a bit before we do that. Well, good. I'm glad to hear you're an honest man, Vincent. Yeah, trust me, that one on my scale was probably about a 6 or a 7 as far as good goes. You know, I've done it a lot better, but I would say that it was better than my average landing, especially in this plane.
Turn right heading 315. Resume all navigation. Descend and maintain flight level 300. Bombardier 905.
Alright, so we are at altitude, and I'll let my speed get up a bit. Let's knock these throttles down now. It's probably as good a time as any. Not throttles, prop control. And you'll see that that takes our, let's click this open for a second. So, you know, it takes us into maximum cruise at this point. So we'll see what our speed tops out at that point. But there's our 850. So we're using 1,000 gallons per hour on both, pounds per hour, sorry, on both engines. We can, in a long range run, I can get that down to like 830 and be doing like 200 or 205. I'm not too worried about saving fuel. If you can see, our speed's still cropping up a little bit. Are we in clouds? It's just that hazy, isn't it? I don't know how close we're going to get to that tropical storm. But yeah, it definitely looks pretty hazy. Yeah, I've never even tried a helicopter. Can't say I wouldn't. Alright, now what I'm going to do is, now that we're pretty much up to our top speed, probably not quite, I'm going to fast forward times 16 and just get us the rest of the way there. When we're about 100 miles out, I'll cut that back down. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is one of the more challenging.
Romeo, Echo, Romeo, 1, 2, 3.
Don't know if it's one of the more challenging planes out there or not,
Romeo.
but
Romeo,
it's
Echo
certainly
Victor,
pretty
Echo
tough.
Romeo. Air Force Base Center, Roger.
It just doesn't want to stick to the ground, you know, like other planes, you bring it in and it just sort of lands. This thing
Ladies and gentlemen,
just keeps popping up, you know. And things happen fairly quick, even though it's a prop plane. It is a turboprop, and you've got a lot of power. The Q400 is, you know, more powerful than the other models, apparently. But that's made it a challenge for me too, so that's why I've liked it. But I did enjoy flying that Cessna today, and I mean,
Romeo,
just
Echo
coming down
Victor,
nice.
Romeo,
And,
Echo, going
you
to
know.
124.6. Romeo, Echo Victor, Echo Romeo.
I would have to say
Romeo, Echo Victor, Echo
that
Romeo.
I have
Page Center, Roger.
probably landed this plane 40 times, and it's still got it down to a 6, like on our scale there, you know. But hey, I guess I'll get better as time goes on. I decided to try to live stream the rest of these just because I think it kind of works out pretty well. Puts a nice, you know, segment to a live stream. But I do have a couple other, all these videos will go up on the channel, and the one before that, like this is flight, I think 106. Yesterday was 105. I'll put up the 104 one, and that was like with a crosswind, and that one, given the crosswind, I think I did okay, but it was still, I literally was sweating. I mean, it was like, I didn't realize it even at the time, but it's still summertime, or at least it's fall, but it's been 80, 90 degrees here. I keep the house a little warm, and I was just pouring sweat. Didn't even notice when I was landing that day, you know. So we still got 400 miles to go, and we look like we're over land again. Some pretty big mountains, as a matter of fact. We can let's pause it for a second, and let's just hop back into Google Chrome real quick and go to, I like the Wonder Map. Get rid of these weather stations because they lag the thing out. That's the area of the world I'm from right there, East Coast of America. You know what? We're probably flying over Taiwan. Yep, that's probably where we're at right now. Because we were coming from here and we're going to there. So that's certainly almost Taiwan. There we go, back in the plane. Yep. Yeah, that's cool. Never been to Taiwan. Guess I still haven't, but down a little bit. Hopefully you can still see it. And our speed's holding nicely. We're sucking up a good amount of fuel to hold that speed. Ground speed, let me open this one up. I'll shrink that down for a minute. Ground speed 342. That's right up there with what this plane can do.
Romeo, Echo Victor, Romeo, going to 133. Romeo, Echo Victor, Echo Romeo. Page Center, Roger.
I've seen it higher, obviously, if I had a tailwind. You know, if you get a strong tailwind. I've got it up to like 370 or something like that. And with a good tailwind, you can get, I bet you can go 1,800 miles with this plane. Oh, the chat is black again. Why is the chat black again? Alright, let's, now that we're more expert in it. YouTube, yeah, look, it unselected it for some reason. There you go. Thank you. All right, now let's shrink that down, right? Yep. Unpause that. There you go. Look, I almost looked like I knew what I was doing. Yeah, I did live stream a couple farm sim episodes a long time ago, or a year ago probably. But I was using that OBS at the time. And the OBS is fine if you ever thought of recording yourself or anything, but it does have its limits, and paying for this XSplit, and I'm sure there's other good ones out there, it allows me to do things like the time fast forwarding.
Romeo 120. Echo Victor, Echo Romeo, center, Roger.
So I've been pretty happy with it. Lets me do the live stream pretty easily, like once you get it set up.
Romeo, Echo Victor, Echo Romeo, going to 12. Romeo, Echo Victor, Echo Romeo, Hong Kong Center, Roger.
Alright, we're at Hong Kong Center, so let's take a look. I don't want to get too close. I did that in the last flight. I kind of stopped paying attention to my distance up here. Kind of got a little closer than I wanted as far as having to descend quickly. So I must have done something to get that chat to go black. I'll have to try to figure it out. One good thing when you game and you record things is you can go, there's times it's nice to be able to go back and see what the heck you did. Probably not worth it as a general statement, but if you got it doing it anyway, it's kind of convenient. Alright, so now we're getting a little bit close, so I'll start slowing down. Get this screen for a second here. There we go. Alright, so once we get a little bit closer, I'll stop the speed up altogether. And then we'll wait for some descent instructions. So we'll go back to regular speed, and I will start looking at my check sheet just to get prepared. Yeah, really not much to prepare for. I can come over here. We're going to land with 15 degrees of flaps. If we had more of a load on the plane, we might go to 30, but not a whole lot of reason for doing that. It's such a light or no load, really. What are we looking out there? Looking like there's storms and clouds. We're above it, fortunately. No cautions. We never did open up the heater. Do we have an ice condition? No warnings of ice. Let's open up the intake heater. Sure what that does for you. A lot of the stuff I'm doing, I don't really know what it does. When I first started flying, I really didn't worry about all this stuff. I just sort of flew it. I didn't turn on all these switches and knobs and
Romeo,
some of them were obvious.
Descend and maintain flight level 200.
Alright, there we go. So let's acknowledge that instruction.
Flight level 200.
We'll take our vertical speed. We will turn it down to 1800. Let's back off on the throttle some. Then we will take our altitude and lower that down to 20,000. altitude select. Back, so you see there's ice detected there.
Echo Romeo, you are 78 miles east, turn right, heading 280, expect vectors, ILS, runway 7, right, approach.
Alright,
Turn right,
acknowledge
heading
that.
280, expect vectors, ILS, runway 7, right, approach. Romeo, Echo Victor, Echo Romeo.
Probably should have taken that heading bug and put it in our general direction just in case we needed to switch off. But I think I went all the way around the clock the wrong way there on doing this. So 280, we'll switch from nav to heading. And let's come up to the kneeboard briefing. And we are going to runway 7 right. 7 right, ILS is 109. Zoom. You know what, let me do this. I don't normally do that, but so here is our VOR 1, 109.3. There we go. So then want to switch this nav source. Since we're done with the flight management system, we'll switch over to nav 1, and there you go. So right down here we've got the we have a DME on this ILS system, and the other thing we want to do is take this course and put it over to 73. There we go. So that'll line. This is the direction of the runway now at that point. So we can get rid of this, and we don't need this anymore, I don't think. Alright, so we can get rid of that, and let's look at that mess. Let's bring it in. 40 seems to be a good distance on this. Look down here, this is where you change the range. Yeah. So I guess that's China. Doesn't look a whole lot of different than a lot of other places. Flight sim, but and another thing, let's come over to here. Now that we're on this, we don't really need all these waypoints. I'm going to come and click direct to destination. Hong Kong's airport is VHHH. Enter. There you go. So now what that did for us was put that up here, plus also took one, you know, the straight line, so it's real easy to see which direction we're flying in on. So it looks like, let's change this range back out. Oops, missed the button. There you go. So it looks like they're going to fly us in. I bet you we're going to turn this way and then come around. So at some point I'd expect some kind of a turn to the left. And I heard that ding again was our altitude getting close. And they wait just long enough for me to have to reset this stuff. And acknowledge him.
Romeo, Echo Victor, Echo Romeo.
This altitude setting all the way down. How is our speed? Our speed's nice. Gotta watch out in this plane on the speed. I know you do it in every plane, but this thing can lose some speed quick and it can gain some speed quick. In that respect, it's kind of like a jet. Alright, some more descent.
Echo Victor, Echo Romeo. Turn left, heading 250.
Yep, there we go.
Turn left, heading 250. Romeo, Echo Victor, Echo Romeo.
So we're still 53 miles out, so we still got a ways to go. And probably start looking at my check sheet again. And when we get below 10,000 feet, we want to make sure our altimeter is set correctly, which I don't like that they don't give you that at some point. In all that exchange there, no altimeter, but fortunately, if nothing else, it's nice to have this. Click current active weather, 2981. So we'll take that down to 2981. They'll tell us as we get closer once we start getting vectors and whatnot, but still nice to get it set a little early. We'll close that. So we have our altimeter set. Well, they want us to start slowing down below 200, but we'll wait till we descend a bit more. External lights on below 10,000. Seatbelt signs. Yeah, we don't have any passengers. Ice protection set. So that's that part of the checklist. And when we get 50 nautical miles from the destination, they're telling me to change. If I come over to here and come to here, I can hit this format for 2 seconds and see how it puts this, it puts the needles here. Might be easier for you guys to see here. There. But I really don't like that. I like seeing the direction to the airport. It kind of gives me a better, this gives me a better idea of what I'm doing. See, like we're flying parallel and like a downwind leg past that runway, and then they're going to have us loop around. So, by seeing this here, I can kind of tell. So let's go to 40. Can't cut it off, but it's nice when it's at 40 once we get a little bit closer. I can kind of tell right, how we're coming in on the runway a little bit better. So, autopilot to heading, we already got that. This is upon receiving vectors. I kind of skipped something. DMH we set, or MDA and DH we set earlier for this. They're both airports were pretty much the same altitude, so it's not a big deal. Speed bug, I don't tend to use. Oh look, speaking of speed, we're getting up there. There's a red stall line here, and plus I've flown this plane empty enough to know that I want to be just below 110. Like we did yesterday. We knocked down the throttle a little bit more. Doing 260. Oh, it is nice to cover some ground, huh? And we already did our ground warning system. That's part of the checklist at this point. We got it set to 15. Heading bug set to the runway heading. But that'll be later on. Mark 2. Yeah, we want to switch this from FMS. Turn this up. Runway. So this is the VOR volume, so we can hear the beeping when we get on it. This is for VOR1, VOR2, since we're set on VOR1 or ILS1 here, there. We'll make it so we can hear that sound. Yep, so we got all our next we're ready for approach.
Contact Hong Kong approach on 119.1. Going to 119.1. Romeo Echo Victor Echo Romeo. Beach 311. Contact Hong Kong approach on Hong Kong approach. Romeo Echo Victor Echo Romeo is at 10,500 for 8,000. Romeo Echo Victor Echo Romeo Hong Kong approach. Roger.
Now they're
altimeter 2980.
Now they're giving us a barometer reading. What's our altitude?
Approach Beach Bravo 1311 wind to 10,000. Beach Bravo 1311 Hong Kong approach. Roger. Altimeter 2980.
Let's take a look outside the plane. Yep, there's Hong Kong right over there. Neat. Yeah, I have the full train at FTX Global. Doesn't have a like a.
Romeo, Echo Victor, Echo Romeo. Traffic is 9 o'clock, 4 miles at 10,000. Each errand, report them in sight.
See it?
Each 311, traffic is
Oh,
1
there it
o'clock,
is.
4 miles at 8,600. Bombardier, report them in sight. Romeo, Echo Victor, Echo Romeo. Traffic in sight. Each 311.
Back in the plane.
Contact Hong Kong Center on
That's where I'm comfortable, is in the
125.8.
plane.
125.8. 48.11.
Oh, did I not hit? What's going on? I don't have
Romeo,
altitude
Echo
select.
Victor, Echo Romeo. Traffic is 8 o'clock, 3 miles at 10,000. Each errand, report them in sight.
I don't see them.
Hong Kong approach, beach Bravo 1311 with you. Each Bravo 1311, Hong Kong approach, roger. Altimeter 2980.
Oh yeah.
Each 311, traffic is 9 o'clock, 3 miles.
Well, you're not missing a whole lot on the chat, and there, you can tell there's a delay when I have to kind of look. Oh, come on, just stop talking. All right, let's go fix the chat since you won't be quiet. Yeah, look, it just keeps. There it goes again, huh? Let's shrink that back down. Yeah, I gotta look into why that keeps. That time I. Oh, wonder if it had to do. The first time I think I went to the Google Chrome down there, and that time I jumped out of the plane. Look, they're really going at talking, aren't they?
Altimeter 2980. Romeo, Echo Victor, Echo Romeo. Traffic is 6 o'clock, 4 miles.
And how can I see 6 o'clock?
Report them in sight.
All I see is an airplane. I don't have rear view mirrors.
9 o'clock, 4 miles at 8,000. Bombardier, report them
Alright,
in
now
sight.
we're starting to lose too much speed.
Each 311, contact Hong Kong Center on 125.8.
See what I mean? We lose that speed pretty quick.
Hong Kong approach, beach Bravo 131. Each Bravo 1311, Hong Kong approach.
No, it's black again, isn't it? Oh, wait a minute. I think I got it fixed. Let me see. I don't think there's that much of a delay. No, it really is just dropping out. Huh. Alright, well, let's see if that sticks up there again. Yeah, I can see myself fixing it on the other screen. So we'll see. There's a pretty good delay, like, between what you guys are seeing and what I'm seeing.
On 125.8. 125.8. Beach 311.
Alright, let me get reoriented. So we're 21 miles out, but we've got a ways to go because we got to get, we got to go all the way down past the airport.
Hong Kong approach, beach Bravo 1311.
And looking at it,
10,000.
and the airport's probably right out this way somewhere.
Approach, roger. Altimeter 2981.
Get this back up so it's a little easier for you to see and follow it. Yeah, Vincent, I noticed at that time when I looked over there, and you're not bothering me, trust me, I want it to work. And I don't know if it's something I'm doing that's causing it, or maybe I'll refrain from going to Google Chrome, or but they are just constant. Like those two are just, look at them, talking and talking and talking. What are they doing? Hopefully we get out of the. I hope they switch my. Look, they're just saying the same thing over and over and over again. Oh, thank you. Look, traffic not in sight. Anyhow. What was that, like 45 minutes ago? They asked me for traffic in sight? That was getting annoying. Guess I can go in there and turn the sound off, but I don't really want to, not off, but down. You know, kind of want to hear air traffic control most of the time. Yeah, speaking of traffic. That's one thing I was tempted to do even before I started this. But I thought, well, let me get the live stream done, and then I'll mess around with. I want to see if there's a decent airport traffic, and you know, it's not. I like seeing the planes. Like I don't know if I really want to sit behind a line of planes waiting to take off, but you know, at the same time, I do like it in the game when I see another plane taking off ahead of me, and you know, I thought maybe I'd take a look for something like that. It'd be pretty nice. You know, I don't know how much all that costs. I spent an awful lot of money with the Global Vector and Global Base and North American LC or whatever they call it. And then here I go flying off into another part of the world that doesn't have all that. But I've got bought another like bundle or whatever from Steam that had like this Rex clouds, and you can actually change with that, like the clouds. I kind of like these, but you can change the way the clouds look a bit. You know, I thought this looked fairly realistic. I guess it's hard to put in every kind of cloud out there. There's for every weather condition. Now I will say that like when there's big storms, I don't know how well it represents that sometimes. Like it puts thunderstorms in there, but it's like they look like this. Like, but a lot of times in life, you know, it's like just a massive thunderstorm, and I think the thunderstorms here are always like these little broken up pockets of clouds. Like I haven't noticed like a real big, massive storm. Alright, what's my speed? So my speed's plenty fast. Where we at? So we're now just perpendicular to the airport. So we've got another, you know, maybe close to 20 miles to go before they get us turning. So I'm okay. I'm saying all that because of speed. I want to, you know, start slowing down a little bit from 220. But see, I'm really not giving it that much throttle. As far as like the throttle position of the joystick, it's probably only like 2/3. Maybe a little more than that. Okay.
Descend and maintain 2,000. Descend and maintain 2,000. Romeo, Echo, Victor,
Yeah, let's
Echo,
cut back
Romeo.
on the throttles greatly, and I don't want to fall at 4,000. That's a bit extreme. And let's get the altitude set down to 4,000, 2,000. I'm sure I'm going to get a ground warning for this one. Okay, let's cut the throttles way back. Start losing a bit of speed. Even in our descent. Yeah, Vincent, it doesn't look like you're missing a whole lot of chat anyway, which is, I guess, positive in some respects. But it's still up, it appears. Oh, look, we got a GeForce Game Ready driver. Oh. Need to pause it. Did that cut it off? I can't see it from here. Oh yeah, I can kind of. I don't know if that's an accurate little tiny picture or not, but whatever. It seems to be up. Yeah, now what I want to find out too is, can I get that chat on my screen? I'm not sure if it would. It's actually not. I can't see the chat on like the screen I'm watching. Not sure if it would be more annoying or good for me to have it, but I would certainly be willing to try to find a nice place for it where I could just view it from in-game, so to speak. Who lives on that island?
H311, contact Guangzhou Center on 118.9.
Some rich Chinese guy.
118.9. H311. Hong Kong approach, speed Bravo 1311, with you 10,000. Romeo, Echo Victor, Echo Romeo, turn right, heading 310. Beach, Bravo 1311,
Guys, we're starting to get
Roger, altimeter
towards the
2980.
approach. Nice. Let's acknowledge the instruction.
310.
Did you notice I figured out how to change the name to Rever? Which is pretty cool. We go into Flight Sim, and then in the plane details, if you open up the airplane, it seems to stick too. Like, so I actually did it by accident one time, and then it's actually, you have to put it in like flight number, which makes sense because that's your flight that they're calling out. So you put it in the flight number under the airplane details, and you can get it to, I guess, say whatever you want. I mean, it just reads off the letters, R-E-V-E-R, like Romeo Ecker type thing.
2500.
Romeo, Echo Victor, Echo Romeo, turn right, heading 345.
Yeah, that, I don't have a dual, I actually have like, my old computer is, like my second computer, so I opened up YouTube on the other computer, and that's how I'm doing it. So yeah, but it's a lot of head turning at that point too. So all right, so we are need to get set up for landing here. I'm going to open up on that other computer, which blocks my view of the chat, but approach checklist. So let's get these auxiliary fuel pumps on. Oops, that one. And that. Get the auto feather on. Get slowed down to 180. And when we get a little closer on the approach, we really could do that as we get to the approach, but I'm not sure how critical, it's probably more procedural at that point as far as, what you do exactly at what times. I mean, it's certainly no reason you have to do 180 per se. There's any law against going slower or faster.
Romeo, Echo Victor, Echo Romeo, you are 17 miles southwest, turn right, heading 050, descend and maintain 1,700, cleared ILS, runway 7, right, approach, maintain 1,700 until established on the runway.
Alright, here's our approach.
Hong Kong Tower on 118.2.
Descend and maintain.
Turn right, heading 050,
So let's get this, it's such a small amount. We'll just
cleared ILS, runway 7,
visual.
right, approach, maintain 1,700 until
Let's just
established.
drop down to
Tower on
1200. Altitude select.
Romeo, Echo Victor, Echo Romeo. Hong Kong Tower, Romeo.
Alright, and we do have the glide slope, so we're definitely on the,
Inbound ILS, runway
I have my
7,
noise.
right approach. Romeo, Echo Victor,
Why am
Echo
I not
Romeo.
hearing?
Hong Kong Tower, make straight in, runway 7, right. Altimeter 2983.
Oh, am I on the right runway? Let's just make sure. 7 right, yeah, 109.3, and then 73 is the course. Yeah, I think we're in good shape. Manage.
Fly straight in, runway 7, right. Romeo, Echo
So
Victor,
how far are we
Echo
now?
Romeo.
12 miles. We're actually pretty close. Oh, that must be it right out there somewhere. Nice. Alright, so let's keep going on with and the chat is black. Yep, so it is. That's the wrong thing. Yeah, that's... Well, there's another version of this. Maybe I'll try that next time. Let's shrink that down. Alright, it should be back on. Well, probably before you even hear me say that it should be back on, but Alright, let's unpause this. And I am going to have to start focusing a bit, or else I'll crash my airplane. So we're going to go flaps to 10. We're going to reduce the power to 160 knots. We're going to tell the flight attendants to sit down, which we don't have to do. Oh, and by the way, if you were going to do all of that stuff, if you come into here and you come to data and cabin display, like I can hit this here. So if I go to next, so here's the other ones. Like for a while I didn't realize that. So here, like if you want to hit play on the approach.
Ladies and gentlemen, we just started our approach. We would kindly ask you to fasten your seatbelts again and turn off all your electronic equipment.
So anyway, if you see that. So if you guys were curious, if you did have passengers, we could pretend and tell them to go sit down and such. Alright, so the altitude bug we want to set on go around, and to be honest, that's close enough. Our needle is moving, so I'm going to put it into the approach mode. Activate the approach, altitude set to go around. Alright, when we're 5 miles out, we want to start. Alright, what is our speed? We're kind of going too slow, aren't we? Let's get that. 24 is a good ballpark. And we are still to the right of the runway, so it's good that that's what's indicated. And how far out are we? 8 miles. Well, you know what? We're gonna start getting some of that stuff set anyway. Let's let the gear come down. And we'll let the gear door close. And we'll get our flaps to 15. Should be slowing us down. Heading bug on the runway setting. So the runway is what, 73? So we'll move that over to 73. Something like that anyway, close enough. Condition levers, we want to move those to maximum. I've landed more than once without doing that. You can do it, it's just not necessarily the best situation. We'll turn our bleed flows to minimum. That's more to do with the fact we're closer to the ground. Alright, we're ready. We have one more second to check the chat again. Yep, alright, so the chat is back as opposed to black. Looks like it's still up there. So if it goes, alright, now we definitely have to slow down some. Clear to land. Okay, I'll acknowledge that.
Right, Romeo, Echo, Victor, Echo, Romeo.
And the wind is 13, slightly from right to left, but we should be okay. So, and this is where I wonder if I'm going to get rid of this thing. Not that it makes that much difference, but alright, so now we're at this minimum decision altitude. So if we weren't on ILS, we would probably need to be able to see the runway by now. Alright, we're slowing down mighty quickly. Slow down. So see this, what I was talking about earlier is this red bar here. Kind of use that as a good gauge on this plane.
07, right.
And it's 95, so that's the stall. And why are we, alright, we're going to get rid of this autopilot. He seems to be messing us up a little bit at this moment. And I want to get a little better lined up with the runway. And I don't want to descend too quickly. Let's give it a little more throttle.
Light slow.
There we go. So now let's come back down a bit. Above the darn glide slope. Good throttles back some, so we don't overspeed. Keep that nose basically pointed right at that little black spot on the runway. Our speed's looking good. We're still a little bit high, but
minimums.
We're not that
minimums.
high. There we go. See, we got back on the glide slope.
100.
Come on.
50. 30. 20.
Come on, go down.
10.
There you go. That was not bad. That one was an 8 or 9. Certainly a little bit reckless, but could have certainly been a lot smoother, but I'll live with it. Must be just a good day. It's 2 good landings for me in a day, you know? So we got the brakes applied.
Romeo, Echo Victor, Echo Romeo. Turn next taxiway.
Alright, where does it look like they have gates?
Welcome to our final destination. Please remain seated
That doesn't look like gates.
until the aircraft has reached its parking position.
Yeah, let's it's a pretty big run or airport, isn't it? Looks like gates are off to the right, so
I'd like to say goodbye.
well, thank you, Vincent.
It was a pleasure having
And by the way, that replay that I did in the last episode seemed to have messed up the air hauler. I'm not sure if you ever did the air hauler thing, but it's counted the landing twice. So.
Romeo, Echo Victor, Echo Romeo. Turn next taxiway.
So what I want to try is once we get
Romeo, Echo Victor, Echo
get up
Romeo.
here,
Contact ground on 1.6.
and I need to shut down the engines first before I can do the replay, like before I can shut off the air hauler.
Echo Romeo.
Let's slow down and stop for a second. And real quick, turn off some lights and such. I never did turn on my landing lights, gosh darn it. Let's turn on the taxi lights. Tuned to Hong Kong ground. So those, let's change these to red. Let's turn off the logo light. If it was nighttime, I might leave some of that stuff on, but taxi to
Hong
gates.
Kong ground. Romeo,
not?
Echo Victor, Echo Romeo. Request
Heater
taxi to
static,
the gate.
heaters
Romeo,
off.
Echo Victor, Echo Romeo. Taxi to gate November 2 Portland. In taxiway Juliet 5 Hotel, Hotel 6
Bus
Juliet
tie,
Victor, Hotel
down
Whiskey
tie.
Alpha, Alpha 8 Bravo 7.
That's a lot of instructions there, buddy. You don't expect me to remember all that.
Taxiing to gate November 2 4. Same taxiway Juliet 5 Hotel,
Aggressive
Hotel
taxi.
6 Juliet Victor, Hotel Whiskey Alpha, Alpha 8
Let's
Bravo
put our
7.
flaps up.
Romeo, Echo Victor, Echo Romeo.
And put our control lock so we don't accidentally take off again. And put our altitude bump to 0. Oops, that's the wrong way. Oh, it's black again, isn't it? Gosh darn it. Oh, that's the wrong button. Yeah, something's going on there. I might try that other. See how it says beta, but there's another one for like HTML or something. So we'll see. Well, let's get rolling. Oops, let's get it unpaused. Alright. So we'll get rolling to the gate. Once we turn the engines off, I want to try to do a replay after disconnecting the air hauler. And I can even show you what I mean. If I don't know how interested in air hauler you guys are, but
Roger, Romeo, Echo Victor, Echo
I
Romeo.
didn't even pay attention that I was supposed to not be moving, but okay. Yeah, why is this doing this? I did the same thing last night, which is actually what got me to thinking about like a better air traffic control mod or something. See how it has me like going around that loop over there? Look at that. And then it has me coming back. I don't know if you can see it quite yet, but it has me coming back in. Look, I'm not going all the way out there and then coming back. Like, who would do that and why? Because they don't want me to hit with that little cart up ahead. Doesn't make any sense. Yeah, so maybe by the next episode I'll have a fancy, or next live stream. Oh yeah, look, they're going to send that guy out there. What are you doing out here, buddy? We'll just go around you. Take this switch off of flight. There we go. So this is Hong Kong. Well, certainly has its own unique look to it. I have no idea how accurate it is.
On taxiway. On taxiway.
Position other traffic. Where?
Hold position, Romeo, Echo,
I don't see
Victor,
any
Echo,
other traffic.
Romeo.
We're just going to inch ahead because, to be honest, Mr. Ground Control Man, you're a little bit dumb sometimes. Oh, there he is. Look, another one of these carts. I'm an airplane, and there's no reason we can't just sort of miss, you know? Are you trying to get hit by a plane? Got a guy in his pickup truck. What are you doing, buddy? Coming this way? Yeah, see, I'm not sure. That's where I talk about getting a better ground traffic, kind of just, you know, airport traffic, but then I don't have the patience to sit there and wait for those little trucks to go by either, so I'm 100% convinced it's a good idea for me to do that. Ooh, slow down.
Romeo, Echo, Victor, Echo, Romeo. Did you copy?
Yeah, well, I really wasn't paying that much attention to you as a general statement. Good Lord, where are we going? This is a big airport. I guess Hong Kong airport would be, wouldn't it? Now, one of the things that's nice about the air hauler, one of the reasons I'm using it, if we park here, and when I go to restart it up, and it brings me right to the same spot, so... I should have probably noted the time that I landed so I could rerun this thing. And we can get another look at the landing. And then I can make sure, once we close the... Usually I close the flight sim first, but there's no reason you have to. You just have to stop the engines. And then the air hauler will recognize the flight as being over. Yeah, I don't think we could be at a gate further away, could we? Hopefully we take off on this side of the... And it's not like they weren't all empty. I'm not sure how they get gates assigned, but... Yeah, I imagine they're owned by the... rented by the airlines. But I think we need to rent one someplace closer next time. Finally. I don't know if you've ever flown much in real life, but it's always a pain when you land and it's like, you know, a half hour, 45 minutes before you actually get to the gate. Detroit. That always seemed to be like the worst one. We had a company we did business with there and had to go there fairly often for a little while. And man, you could land on that airport and feel like it would be like 3 hours before you finally got to your gate. I'm sure it wasn't that long, but that plane would like stop at every runway, and you know, it's kind of crazy. Alright, so we're ready to shut her down. Let me get the shutdown checklist going. Alright, so let's turn off the windshield and all the heating. So we don't need de-icing. Probably could have turned this off a little sooner. Main bus tie is to that. This is off. Pilot side heating, windshield heater. Alright, auxiliary fuel pumps. Again, something else that could have probably been turned off sooner. Let's take the throttle control and prop controls back to start feather. Nothing else, it'll be a little quieter for us. Yaw damper can get turned off. Pitot-static tube heaters are off. Autopilot and standby. Altitude bug to 0. We did all of that. Weather radio off. Or weather radar off. Alright, so let's turn off some lights. Taxi lights. Ground collision lights. Position lights. Parking brake is set. Yeah, I got a little red thing down there if nothing else. Power lever to disconnect. Nose steering off. Nose steering off is right here. Transponder, put that to standby. Hold that for 2 seconds. Again, that's a tough one to figure out if you're just going down a check sheet. We're going to turn our bleeds off. And recirculation off. And if we wanted to, we could put on the auxiliary power unit at this point to complete the shutdown, but I'm not going to. Anti-collision lights. Again, we could also call for ground power, but we're just going to power it down and be done. Yep, and then we would, open up the doors, which is Shift E. And if you wanted to, you can come down here and put that over to Sys, and then put doors on there and show that your door's open. And if you look, the plane's pretty cool. Oops. The door actually does open, and if I hit, I always get the numbers wrong, but I can hit Shift E2. See that there's the cargo door opening. So nice little touch, And then you have a couple other doors. Oops, can't go further that way. You got some more doors over here, so it's kind of nice, All right, but now let's get the power. Let's get the engines killed, and that will end. That will end the flight as far as air hauler is concerned. There we go. So alright, very nice. So what we'll do is come here, go to this, and then hit finish flight monitoring. And we got a smooth landing, which is very good. 172 on the VS landing speed, so I'm good enough. I think below 100 gets you a greaser, but I'll take that one. All right, so now that is done monitoring. So what I want to do, and this is where I probably should have noted the time. Let's go to options, instant replay. Let's just do 1,000. 1,000 is kind of too much, isn't it? All right, let's hit escape. And let's try 800. There we go, kind of perfect. Let's get out of the plane. So this is what I did the other day, and I did this, I think it's kind of cool. Just to be able to see exactly what you're doing. Coming in a little bit high here, it looks like. But I got it back down. And if I move... Oh yeah, look, it actually depends on my eye level as to whether those things are right. but I was a little bit high and got it back down on a nice glide slope. Close enough. Look at that. That's about a perfect. You want the big white block right there. Now look, see how it kind of floats on you, this plane? You like really have to like force it into the ground, you know? Yeah, that was pretty smooth. Now yesterday when I did this, I got a second message up here from the air hauler. Oops, let me get back to where I can see your chats, if any. Yep, cool. All right, so let's hit escape and jump back into the plane. Not that I don't think it matters. And there you go. So I'm about to wrap up the live stream here, but let's just end this flight and I will show you guys what I mean. I'll probably go report this on the Air Hauler 2 forums. We'll close that. Yep, I'm sure. So if we come in here to my pilot log, flight log, you'll see we just got one landing from RDON to VHH. But see how we took off from Tokyo, which is the RJTT. That was yesterday's flight. And we landed and it said okay, even though I was at 327, which is, I don't know, kind of high, but whatever. And then I did the instant replay and it came down and gave me that damage. And the same thing had happened when I flew from Russia. We'll just call it Russia because I can't pronounce it that well. Over to Tokyo. I came in, I landed, and I did some damage that day on that flight. But then, I did the instant replay because I thought it would be cool, and I got 4 damage the second time. So depending on how you look at this, when we look at my fleet, and here's my airplane that we're flying around the world, 6 of that damage I think was because I did the instant replay. So I'm not too worried about it at this moment. I could always repair it, but hopefully that doesn't become an issue. And if I keep having some decent landings, you can see I did well in the beginning there. The first 5 flights were pretty nice. This one was the test flight to get activated. So anyway, well, that's probably about it. We can hop over to here real quick if we want. Go into this sky vector. There we go. We'll just take a look real quick. What would the next leg be? So here we are there's Hong Kong, and we would be going to Dhaka. So right now it's even escaping my memory what country that is. But anyway, sorry for anyone who lives there. The Asian map is obviously not my strong suit, which, hey, it's part of the reason I'm flying around the world. I'm learning about things I wouldn't have otherwise paid attention to. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the live stream, or if you're watching it, I hope you enjoyed it. Take care of yourselves, and happy flying. Bye-bye.